Taking a look at where we are right now in Elizabethville to support the chapter on Lykens Valley Massacre, we're going to go west of Elizabethville. When you go west of Elizabethville, you're coming to the Susquehanna River, and we'll go over on to the west side of the Susquehanna River. And a little bit south and west, you'll come to Duncannon. Right here is the Juniata River, and that's where Andrew Lykens was living at the time. I'll back out here a little bit, and you can see 22322. Right here is Newport. Okay, many of you are familiar. And then just past Newport, you have Greenwood School District, and Juniata School District is right up here. Right in this area, it would be about right in here is where Andrew Lykens was living. And that was when the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Hamilton, ordered that the settlers get out of there. And the reason why the governor got involved was not so much because they were squatters, but simply because he wanted to keep peace with the Native Americans. The biggest Native American group in this area would have been the Iroquois. And the British wanted to make sure the Iroquois stayed on their side in really all relations. Now, they didn't know at the time that the French and Indian War was going to occur, but certainly tensions were very high. And I will use this word to describe this territory. This territory is very dangerous. There's a lot of tension out through here. You had French fur traders, the British were here, the Iroquois, and then you also had the most Native American groups, which were very loyal to the British. So this was a very, very tense area. And if you go the further west you go, it gets even more tense because that's, of course, where the war is going to start out by Pittsburgh. It was over here where Andrew Lykens was living, and that was when the officers came to remove him along with Conrad Weiser. When Andrew Lykens refused to leave, he was, of course, arrested after pointing a gun at the sheriff's deputies, as we talked about. And from there, he was sent to jail in the Harrisburg area. Don't know exactly where the jail was. I don't know if it was right inside of Harrisburg. Once he got out of jail, then, of course, he lived in Loyalton. And we'll take a look here. His farm, and I'll talk to you more about this in class, his farm was literally right here. Went down through along the Wickanisco Creek back to the mountain. Included part of Berry Mountain here, pretty much right up along Oakdale Station Road, and then back over here. But he lived here along the creek because it was great farmland. And actually, in Dauphin County, you can actually research the deed of the property, and you will see that Andrew Lykens was actually the original owner. Now, I'm going to throw one thing out of here, or out with this story. When Andrew Lykens died, and I'll tell you that whole story as we get to it in class, his wife was actually given the deed for the property. That could very well be the first time in North America that a woman was actually given the property by court order. Don't know that for sure, but I can guarantee it's one of the first times, if not the first time. And we'll talk more about that. Now, let me go back here to the Susquehanna River again. And again, keeping in mind Andrew Lykens was living on the west side of the Susquehanna. One important figure that was also living there was, excuse me, a gentleman by the name of Simon Girty. And I mentioned him before. Simon Girty sometimes is really unrealistically portrayed in cartoons and fairy tales as a villain. And some would say that. Simon Girty would have lived over here in the same area on the west side of the Susquehanna where Andrew Lykens was living. He actually lived, though, closer to the Susquehanna River. And if you look here, you can see this rock formation. When the water is high, you probably wouldn't even notice that it's there. But when the water gets low, this actually makes like a waterfall. And they call this Girty's Half Falls. Also, it's also referred to as Girty's Notch, which is an interesting location on the Susquehanna River. And a lot of sportsmen, a lot of bass fishermen frequent this area. So now what we'll do is take a look at the video on Simon Girty, who's going to tell us a little bit more about him. And while you're thinking of Simon Girty and some of the areas in which he lived, you can also think that that would be the same type of life that Andrew Lykens would have been living.